Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madhav Nalapad, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay on this topic. The French presidency said that the leaders of Britain, France and Germany will host a video call later today involving Kyiv's allies in a coalition of the willing to discuss steps towards peace in Ukraine. The meeting, coordinated jointly by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. This comes a day before Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky travels to Washington to hold talks with U.S. President Donald Trump. The coalition of the willing, set up by the UK and France as the Trump administration threatened to withdraw security support for Europe, is made up of more than 30 countries working together to support Ukraine. Its aim is to provide security guarantees to Ukraine in the event of a deal being reached between Kyiv and Moscow, with several countries, including France and the UK, having pledged to send troops on the ground to enforce a potential agreement. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Madhav Nalapad. He's the editorial director at TSG. Thank you, Madhav Nalapad, for staying with us. Now, looking at these both news that we discussed earlier and this one, how might this European leaders' involvement in the upcoming meeting influence the outcome, especially in terms of you mentioning that Trump doesn't like pressure in some instances like this one?
Look, the European leaders are going to talk among themselves in an echo chamber and without the presence of the United States. And bringing NATO into it, it will be NATO minus the United States, because the United States is not going to go to war over the issue of Ukraine. War with Russia, which is probably got more nuclear weapons than the US, if not the same, then possibly more. So US is not going to go to war with Russia. And the million euro question will be, are the Europeans prepared to go to war with Russia to fight for Ukraine? What are the electors going to say about that? What are those who handle their finances going to say about that? Because costs will be astronomical. It will be ruinous. The fact is, they are not willing to put boots on the ground until, quote unquote, there is an agreement. An agreement, well, it's like a ceasefire. But Putin will not accept an agreement which of the kind that European leaders want him to accept. So they're talking in an echo chamber, basically to themselves, the way they have talked, dozens of times, literally dozens of times in front of global media, and they're just posturing, frankly. One can predict what they're going to say. Ukraine cannot surrender territory. Russia has committed aggression. This is a highly dangerous thing for the whole of Europe. If we don't defend Ukraine to get back its land, then all of us in Europe can be invaded by Russia. The same mantras which they repeated throughout the course of this war, they'll be repeating to themselves again, and in the hope that President Trump will get a summary of what they say. And I think that is not going to, what do I say? That's not going to make him particularly happy. Thank you.
Thank you. And also now, today, they have scheduled a video call hosted by UK, France, and Germany with Ukraine's allies. Highlights a united front on Ukraine's security, of course. So how crucial is this coalition of the willing in shaping future peace talks between Ukraine and Russia?
Look, this is a coalition of the willing, provided there's no war, provided there's an agreement. If there's no agreement, there's no coalition whatsoever. I don't know a single country in this group. Even the Germans, who have been the most enthusiastic, or the French, who are going to then, agree to have a war with Russia. The UK and France are nuclear weapon powers, but so is Russia. Much bigger than either of them or both of them put together. So the reality is, what kind of what are we talking about? Are they willing to go to war with Russia? That's been the question from the beginning. They're willing to go to war to sacrifice more Ukrainian lives. I said early on, very early on, that, they will fight to the last Ukrainian, but they're not going to fight themselves. They'll leave it to Ukraine and they'll shower Ukraine with money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madhav Nalapad, for always joining us and sharing your insight throughout our news as an editorial director of TSG. Now we move on to our next news. Georgia's army is airdropping human